I'm Leah Lane, an award-winning travel writer and author of Places I Remember, Tales, Truths, Delights from 100 Countries. On this podcast, we share conversations with travelers about fascinating destinations and memorable experiences around the world. In this episode, we'll be talking about some of the delights of Ireland, the sights, food and drink, storytelling, and music. Our guest is Joe Kearns, born in Dublin and now living in the Old Cabra Schoolhouse in Kings Court, Cavan. A longtime lover of traditional Irish music and Irish stories, Joe got his start playing guitar and singing in Irish pubs. He's been playing music professionally and traveling all over the world with his lovely wife, Olivia, for the past 15 years. Welcome, Joe.
Hello, Leah. How are you?
I'm great. Now, you're a Dublin boy, so let's start off with Dublin. What are some of the best things about Dublin that we shouldn't miss?
Um, I think no matter where you go in Dublin, you're always going to get someone who is not afraid to talk the hind legs off a donkey. You know, it's kind of you're never going to have a shy. You're never going to meet a shy person in Dublin. You know,
Right.
they've got we call it the gift of the gab, is what we call it. You know,
And you have it.
I have it, as you know.
So where do we go to hear the best gift of gab?
I think whenever I have family or friends coming from America, and they say they have, I think ideally it's great to have 2 or 3 days in Dublin. You don't need a lot of time in Dublin, but 2 or 3 days of Dublin, and then slowly make your way south and then west. But when you're in Dublin itself, I always say just go to a pub. And I know how long are we in the podcast and we're already talking about going to a pub, but there we go. But if you go to a pub in Dublin, within 30 minutes, you're going to have someone in that pub, a real character who just insists on knowing you and knowing your story. And there'll be a lot of stuff back and forth said. And most of it will be true. A lot of stuff will be made up. You know, we're storytellers, and it's kind of, we like to exaggerate as much as we can. And we're very, very warm in that way. I think there's a general feeling in Dublin that if you're sat at a table with your friends and you're all local to that pub, if you see someone who's not normally in the pub, they're a strange face, you know, and you don't know them, it kind of itches at you that you have to get them involved. So you'll talk a little bit louder and then ask them a question, and by the end of it, everybody knows each other, you know. So my recommendation for Dublin is to just get out and go into, if you see 2 bars or 2 pubs next to each other and you see one that's shiny and brand new, and it's got, you know, it's got a magnificent art on the walls, and it's very bright, and there's glass and cappuccinos everywhere, you know, it's kind of, don't go to that one. Go to the one that looks like it was just on fire. You know, it's kind of, that's the one with the people with their feet in the ground, like, you know, it's the real
The one with a dartboard.
Yeah.
I find that
It's where
I agree with you that one of the great delights of Ireland are the people. It's a very special place for that reason. Of course, there's the Book of Kells, which I should mention is in Dublin in Trinity College, and it's 1 page a day. It's a medieval book. It's beautiful. Then you go to the pub afterwards, and then come back maybe to see St. Patrick's Cathedral with its beautiful stained glass and its beautiful floors, and then maybe go back to the pub. But that sounds like a good beginning.
You'll meet many an expert about what you've just seen. So if you go if you go to see the Book of Kells, you'll talk to someone and you'll say, I just visited the Book of Kells, and they'll give you the history of the Book of Kells, but it will be a different history to the next person. You know, the next person will give you a completely different history of it. You know, it's the Trinity College is amazing. The place that the library that's in, the long room, it's an amazing place, and it's definitely another highlight that I would recommend people when they
I
come
think
to
it has
visit, you know.
200,000 books I read, and beautiful barrel ceilings and very, very special.
And when it was first built, they packed it so much to capacity the roof originally was flat. It was completely flat. There was no barrel roof. The barrel roof that's so famous and it's kind of influenced libraries and movies like Harry Potter and everything else. Um, it's iconic. The barrel roof was iconic, but that was originally flat. But they filled the place so much with books, and they got two capacity of books that they had to eventually build the arch just to stack a few more in the upper level. Um, but it's a
Fascinating.
yeah, and the smell. As soon as you go in, the smell hits you as soon as you go in, and it's just a place of worship of words. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful place.
The
Uh,
Irish people love poetry and words, and I
yeah,
guess the room reflects that.
yeah.
Now, you mentioned going west. How about some of the pretty cities or towns, Kilkenny and Cork in that area? What do you recommend?
Yeah, Kilkenny is beautiful. I was in Kilkenny. Um, I think it would have been December last year. Myself and Olivia went to Kilkenny. Um, the beginning of December last year. Uh, I might have that right. My dates might be wrong, but we were there very, very recently, and it was at a time where there was no tourists. Just because of, and I'm talking completely seasonal now. I'm not talking about anything else. I'm talking about seasonally. There was no tourists in the typical uh, places like on the East Coast. You would have a Dublin bar wouldn't have as many American tourists in it at this time of the year. So I wasn't expecting music in Kilkenny on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. And I said to the taxi man, myself and Olivia got ready when we went out, and we says, "Look, it's going to be boring, but we'll go out for a drink and whatever, see what happens." And we said that as soon as we got into the taxi man said, "Oh no, it's the town is alive, it's very busy." And it was just a random Tuesday afternoon, no special occasion, but we went in and it was crammed full of people. And there was a table with about 15, 20 musicians, and they were all playing, and everybody was, young and full of energy. And then that pub spilled out, and everybody started making their way to this club. And it was like a blues swing band in the club. So you had traditional Irish music, and then you had a blues band. And I said to the guy who was at the door, the bouncer, the security, I says, "Is this normal?" And he says, "Yeah, absolutely. This is completely normal. The only day this doesn't happen is on um, Christmas Day." He says, "But every day, it's so in that way, it's a very special, very very special place, Kilkenny. It's a live wire, you know.
Right.
I wouldn't go there with a hangover, is what I'm saying. Um, it's
The
it's it's a it's a beautiful place, and the people are so talented in that town. It's got such a rich history of music. Many places in Ireland does. Um, but the girl that was playing the concertina that night, she was playing the concertina. It's like a small accordion, and a Celtic instrument. And she was playing it so fast that you couldn't see her hands move. And she was a young girl. I'd say she was about 18, 19 years old. And Olivia and myself were having a few drinks, and I was having a few more and a few more and a few more. And eventually I was like, "I'm going to go up and tell her that she's fantastic." And Olivia was like, "No, you might distract her, whatever." So I went up to, as she was playing, just to say, "You're very good." But she began to talk to me, saying, "Oh, I can see that you and your wife is really into the music. Are you musicians yourself?" And this is while she's still playing. And I'm thinking, how is she keeping the concentration on that level of music? And it's just in her. It's as easy as breathing for her, and you can tell that a lot when you walk around the towns. That there's a lot of people like that, and it could be that their parents instilled the love of the music very, very early, and some people may have just seen it as a bit of a burden that they have to learn another song or go to a competition. But the ones who really stick at it, it's just part of them. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and you will see it if you go. And if you make your way towards the west, the more you make your way towards the west, the more of that style of music you'll see. And a lot of All Ireland champions, and it's beautiful.
The whole area is beautiful. The colors of the little towns on the harbors on the west side is
Yeah,
just
yeah,
magnificent. And add the music in there, it's super.
yeah,
What about the Ring of Kerry? That's very famous. I think because it's beautiful, but also there's things there that are perhaps not as well known. There is a couple of islands, the Skellig Islands.
yeah,
One is Skellig Michael, which I remember going to. It's very steep, and we took a boat from Port McGee, and it was very rough waters. And
yeah,
then we got there. I was kind of seasick, and then we had to climb up 600 steps up to
yeah.
the top of the monastery. And I remember I was so nervous, and then the boat was going to leave, and I was late, and I had to go all the way down on my butt because it was so scary. And I'll never forget it. But the top of it was a part of what I think Star Wars um, filmed it, because it's such a beautiful monastery up at the very top from the 6th century.
Yeah.
And so that's very moving. But there's also Killarney National Park. There are beautiful things there. There's a castle, there's all kinds of lakes and mountains, and you can take a pony cart. I know that this is one of the areas people love to hike, and that's on the Ring of Kerry. And
Yeah,
then you
yeah,
have the Dingle Peninsula.
yeah.
And
Dingle, I love. It's one of
yeah,
my favorite.
Dingle is great. Dingle's full of color and full of
Yeah,
pubs.
yeah. And there's a very famous music festival that happens there every year called Other Voices, and it's hosted many big name. Amy Winehouse. Before Amy Winehouse passed away, she was playing in this small little church. Um, I think it's called St. Kevin's Church. I might be wrong, but it might be St. Kevin's Church. Uh, and I'd say it holds about 60, 70 people. So there's an audience of 60, 70 people looking at Amy Winehouse playing,
Oh, wow.
um, but it's streamed into every single bar. But like I said, Dingle is the kind of place that um, you will walk into a bar and you will see a barman behind the bar, and you will question whether it is a bar or a DIY shop, because in the same place that you can buy a pint of Guinness or sit there and have a glass of wine, you can also buy Phillips head screws, uh, and a saw. Like, yeah, it's
It's
just
Irish. It's
it's
Irish.
it's character, and the character is walked into the floorboards. It's
It's fabulous.
you can't get away from it.
I know Dingle is the center of the Irish language, and somebody told me that the mayor at one point was very insistent that all the signs be put in Irish with no translation in English, and everybody was getting lost, and everyone was furious because the tourists couldn't find the place. They had to add
Yeah,
the translation, but that was how strongly he felt about keeping the Irish language. That's the center of the movement, and there were
yeah,
writers who lived on an island there. It's very famous, where they would write in Irish language. It's now uninhabited, unfortunately. Do
yeah,
you know about that?
yeah. It's a back and forth thing that's been um, it's been talked about quite a bit in Ireland, about whether or not to. It's not just the signs; it's also in the schools. When I was younger in school, it was mandatory, to learn Oscailga, the Irish language, um, and I think a lot of people, the vast majority of people, you asked, do they know any words in Irish? They will be able to give you a few, but not really string a sentence together. So it's declined in the country, but they still want to hold on to the history of it, and they still want the kids to learn it in the schools. But there's a new movement that's coming where they're more and more adamant to give people a choice of whether they want to learn it or not, and they're nervous that the language will slip away from the history. And it's interesting. Only the day before yesterday, I rang up the national electricity supplier, because we were having troubles here in the house with the electrics. And I called up, and the first thing they asked was, would you like this conversation to be in English or in Irish? And I was thinking, well, I'll call them back in English, but I'll see how I get along with the Irish. And I pressed the second button, and this voice comes on and speaks in Irish about the electricity.
What would you say?
And I got,
How would you say something like, "Can you fix my light?" How would you say that in
see,
Irish?
I know to work on something is uber. and I think the Irish for electricity is electricity. It's kind of, so
Got it.
little bits, and you're kind of, well, I am. I'm a little bit embarrassed about the level of Irish that I have. I have a little bit, and I find that when I'm around someone who speaks it, which isn't that often, you almost have to seek them out.
Yeah.
But I feel like it comes back a little bit, and you can kind of get by with broken Gaelic, is what they say.
Yes.
Um, but it's a part of our history. But I think if someone is that if someone is going to miss it that much, then they will do it out of the sheer love of it. I think it's the same with music. If you force someone to sit down at a piano and say play all the scales, you end up having a little bit of a resentment towards the scales. And I think the same thing is with the Irish language. If you tell a child that they have to learn this language, it becomes just another part of schoolwork, and it stops becoming something that they should have a genuine pride in, and a genuine love for. So I think if you're gonna end up speaking the language, it's something that you will naturally blossom into, and you will find it. It's not going anywhere just because it's not on a
Oh
sign to
no.
say, this is the way to the toilets. You're still gonna find the toilets. It's kind of
It'll be there. It'll be around with the
yeah,
writers and all. Uh, County Clare has two of the most popular tourist attractions. One is spectacular, the Cliffs of Moher.
yeah,
That's about 400-foot high cliffs for about 5 miles. I think if anyone saw The Princess Bride, the movie, there it's the Cliffs of Insanity in that
yeah.
movie. But what do you think of that? And have you been many times, or is
I used to work in Lisdoonvarna in County Clare, and that was a 10-minute drive away from the Cliffs of Moher. So I actually had my 21st birthday party was a picnic on the top of the Cliffs of Moher. Um, Now, in your mind, you hear picnic, you're probably thinking about where like everyone else's idea of a picnic, sunshine, and this was an Irish picnic. Uh, you know, it was sideways rain and gale force winds, and there wasn't any ham and cheese sandwiches. It was Guinness. It was kind of like it was a proper party. I'm very familiar with it. I've been there a lot. I've been there so much that I've stopped seeing it as a touristy area, and I know the little bits. They say that an Irish person uh, is not part of the touristy kind of way when you know the secret places to park your car. So there would be queues to pay €5 to go into the car park to go to visit the Cliffs of Moher, but you'll know a ditch somewhere that you could just park the car in, and so I'm at that level with the Cliffs of Moher. They're beautiful. I know there's a woman there. You've been, haven't you, to the Cliffs of
Yes, I
Moher?
have. It's
And did
very
you have?
it's right off the Burren, the kind of the plains, the peat
Yeah.
bogs and all. Yeah, it's very
Do you
pretty.
do you happen to remember a harp player? As soon as you went in, there's a harp player that greets everybody. She has a
No.
little box of CDs. She's very good, and she's often there. And then you have what I recommend people to do is to actually go on the boats from Dublin, and that takes you right underneath the cliffs,
Yes.
because of course you get a better view of the cliffs from the water. If you're on the top of the cliff, you just look out, you see the horizon. But yeah, I like it. There's a very there's a strong pride in the place, but there's also a hope that it never becomes too commercialized.
Yes. Speaking of
That
that, what do you think about Bunratty Castle, which is not far away it's a beautiful 15th century castle, but it has a medieval banquet where it's very popular with tourists where you
I've been there.
have music, and I've been there where you drink honey mead.
Yeah,
And what do you think of that? That's
and they
touristy,
call
but it's
as soon
what
as
do
you
you
go in, they call you my lord and my lady, and
Yes.
you get into it.
I think
I
it's
like.
a good introduction, but it's, not for everybody.
No, but see, the thing is, if one castle here, and it's such a privilege to be able to say it, but if one castle doesn't tickle your fancy, just head up the road 20 minutes and you'll find something that does. It's.
Absolutely.
Um, I remember that. I remember being in the banqueting hall, and they had to lock someone up for being unruly, and they put him in a chamber as your. And the mead was beautiful as well.
Yes, I
The
remember
honey wine.
Honeymead, Honeymead.
Yeah,
There are many medieval buildings, monasteries, castles all along the highways.
yeah,
What
yeah,
about in Galway? There's a beach there that's made of coral. Have you ever been to that?
yeah. The name is slipping now, but it's a
It's in
very
Carraro, Carraro.
yeah, it's a very postcard. It's popular on postcards. Like, if you, I guarantee most people, if you look up postcards of Ireland, it's going to show up. It's an unusual thing. Um, Again, it's just so drastically. It's amazing the size of this little island and how drastic the change in each part of it. When you go on the east coast, and then when you go down to County Cork, and then when you're on Clare, and then if you're up in Donegal and you see the Giant's Causeway, there's always just something that's so different but so dramatic as well. Um,
That's
yeah,
why, excuse me, one of the reasons it's so popular is that besides the beautiful storytelling and the people, it is gorgeous. And
yeah,
even the
yeah,
rainbows all over with the rain, you get rainbows. It's just
yeah,
one of
yeah.
those places that it has
I know,
beauty.
and I kind of have to be aware that sometimes it can come across as real, um, like boastful, like, too much. That, I'm one of the most patriotic Irish people you'll ever meet in your life. And you know that from seeing me perform. I can't stop talking about the place, and I feel so lucky to be here. And I have a genuine love for Ireland. I've got and I can talk all day about Ireland. Um, but it's amazing when Olivia first came here, um, and she met my family, and we went for a walk, and it started to rain, and my family live right on the beach in Bettystown, County Meade, just north of Dublin, and a huge rainbow came, uh, huge, and Olivia ran into the house and said to my mother and father, "Quick, quick, quick, get out, get out, get out. You have to see this. You have to see this." So my whole family are thinking, "What's going on?" So we go out to the garden, and Olivia's pointing at the rainbow, and we're like, "Yeah." So, um, what did they say? Your eyes become it
Just your
becomes used to,
hmm the
your
beauty. It's just part of your life.
which is a beautiful thing and a sad thing. The downside of living in such a beautiful place is that you forget that it's beautiful. You know.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
people call the rain Irish mist. That's
Yeah.
what you look. The outlook is beautiful. That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
attitude that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a down thing and a plus thing. So that's
Yeah.
partly Irish, right?
Yeah. It's partly Irish. And again, one of the first times Olivia was here, we went to a hotel in Galway, and the hotel was about a 45-minute walk away from the center of Galway city, because back then we didn't have as much money and we had to go for the cheaper hotels. Um, so we were 45 minutes away from anything famous or anything that she had to see in the city. And it was sideways rain. We have different kinds of rain. We have rain that comes down, and we have rain that hits the ground and comes up, and we have sideways rain. I said to Olivia that we're going to go for a walk into the city. And for me, it was the most romantic thing to be huddled under an umbrella, with my girl, my arm around my girl and an umbrella and the rain coming in. And that's the idea I had in my head. But in reality, it was two of us out there like soaked dogs. The umbrella turned inside out, her screaming at me saying she'll never live here. Um,
Oh,
yeah, we
that's
do.
so
We,
cute.
we try and see the positive in it.
Absolutely. Um, one area that we'll end with something that I think is special. It's called the Wild Atlantic Way. It's County Mayo and Donegal, and it's a very less inhabited area, I think, and less touristy. There's sheep and peat bogs and white sand beaches. There's a beautiful
Yeah,
lighthouse.
yeah,
And the thing I like about it is you can actually see the northern lights. People want to go there all the time now to we know they're traveling the world to see the northern
yeah,
lights up to Finland. Well, you can go to Ireland at certain times of year at the very tip in the north
Yeah.
and actually see the northern lights there. So I don't want to not mention that as a different place. It's something that maybe isn't as well known. Have you
Yeah.
been up that way lately?
The Wild Atlantic Way,
Yeah.
it's it's been pushed very, very well by the Irish tourism board. The tourism they've even started the Ireland's Ancient East. So you have Ireland's Ancient East and you have the Wild Atlantic Way. So you have these two. The edges of Ireland have their own thing. It is beautiful, and you do know when you're kind of, when you're in it, because the walls become stone walls. You know, um, I know when we've entered the Wild Atlantic Way, because you're driving down a road and then you'll have to stop because there'll be a farmer who looks like he's never seen anybody in 15 years shepherding sheep across the road. It's untouched and it's beautiful in that way, and it is something to be proud of, and it is it's looked after as well. It's very much looked after. I don't think it'll ever be affected by too much tourism or anything to do with new buildings going up. It's known that that's untouched and it should stay that way. Um,
Well, I think, you've painted a beautiful picture. I would like to talk to you just a little bit about the food of Ireland because we know about Irish stew and salmon and all these wonderful things, but there are a few things that I think I've looked at. I'm not sure about them, and you might know a lot about them. It's something called colcannon.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
that and
Kilkenny.
colcannon? Yes, that's a potato. What a
Yeah,
potato
yeah,
mash.
it, yeah. It's another form of potato.
And then there's something called boxty. Is
Yeah,
that have you had that? Is that something from the past, or is that something that you would
it,
have?
it's not around too much now. Um, yeah, it's another one of those. If it's in the cupboard and can be thrown into one pot, kind of do it.
And then there's something
It's
called coddle. That's a stew where
coddle.
you yeah, coddle. Is it cuddle
Yeah,
or
yeah,
coddle?
cuddle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Now,
leftovers? Is that where you go to the pantry and see what you
well,
have?
I'd be more familiar with coddle because I'm from Dublin, and I was probably the last age of kid that actually experienced coddle. I don't think it's big now. Um,
Uh-huh. I
it's
just like the name. It's such a wonderful name that I figured,
yeah,
maybe it's good,
it's
maybe it tastes good.
it tastes nice. It's very comforting. It's boiled from, well, my grandmother's recipe is boiled sausage, which is the most unappetizing thing to look at. It looks like a raw sausage. So it's boiled sausage, boiled ham. You would have potatoes boiled down until there was absolutely no remnants of flavor or vitamins or anything. Uh, then it's all mixed into a big soup, and you either got a good bowl or a bad bowl. So if you were lucky to get the ladle with the meat and sausages, it was great. But if you weren't, you just had some runny potatoes and some chicken stock.
I
It
think I'll
was
pass on I like the name better than
yeah,
the way it sounds. How about
yeah, yeah,
barmbrack? Barmbrack is another thing I've heard about. It's
yeah.
kind of
And
a
we're right in the season of it now as
yeah,
well. It's a very Halloween thing. Olivia loves it. Um, it's a it can be toasted.
it's like a fruit cake, right?
It's a fruit cake, but we have there's always a ring. There's a ring hidden in the barmbrack. Um, and whoever finds the ring in their slice is said to have good luck and possibly marry in the following year.
I heard if you have a
So
rag in there, it's bad luck.
yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah,
a pea,
yeah.
you'd be wed soon, or if you had a stick in there, you'd be quarreling soon. Sounds
Yeah.
interesting. I don't know if I'd
It's
want to
nice.
eat it.
No, I mean but Olivia buys it.
Ah,
I'm actually looking at one now. We bought it about 2 days ago, and she digs the ring out and then leaves it. So
that's
um,
not nice.
no, it's nice. I end up eating the rest of it though.
Well, we've talked a little bit about Guinness. There's all, Bailey's. I have a story about Bailey's. When I first went to Ireland in the 1980s, Bailey's Irish cream had not yet come to America. And I had
Yeah,
tasted it first in Ireland. Oh my goodness, that was delicious. And I told someone, and as an example of the beautiful hospitality, every time I went anywhere afterwards, my guide had Bailey's for me, even for breakfast on the cornflakes. I had Bailey's
yeah,
and
yeah.
cornflakes. It was a great discovery.
I bet you
Um,
had a great day.
I had a wonderful week full of
Yeah.
Baileys and
If
Jameson's
you're starting
whiskey.
off with Baileys and cornflakes, that's a
Oh,
recipe for a
I
good time.
recommend it. I recommend it.
Yeah.
Would you be so kind as to give us a song that's memorable to you about Ireland? And
Yeah.
it would
So
be wonderful.
I'm gonna do a song called Raglan Road. It's considered one of the most iconic ballads in Ireland. It was written by a poet called Seamus Heaney. Oh, sorry, Patrick Kavanagh. I'm jumping ahead. He's written by Patrick Kavanagh, and Patrick Kavanagh actually asked a hero of mine called Luke Kelly from the Dubliners to sing this song, to turn the poem into a song. And Luke Kelly has the most iconic version of this, and it's considered um, one of the most beloved ballads. It's about a man who, you can explain a good Irish song when you can explain it in one sentence. It's about a man who loves a woman he sees on the street. That's it.
Uh-huh.
So I'll do it for you now. This is
Thank
Raglan Road.
you.
It goes like this. On Raglan Road of an autumn day, I saw her first and knew that her dark hair would weave a snare that I might one day rue. I saw the danger and I passed along the enchanted way, and I said, let grief be a falling leaf at the dawning of the day. On Grafton Street in November, we tripped lightly along the ledge of a deep ravine where can be seen the worth of passion's pledge, and the Queen of Hearts still making tarts, and I'm not making hay. Oh, I love too much, and my such by such is happiness thrown away. Well, I gave her the gifts of the mind, I gave her a secret sign that's known to the artists who have known true gods of sound and tone, and word and tint I never did stint. I gave her poems to say, with her own name there, and her long dark hair, like the clouds or the fields of May. On a quiet street where all ghosts meet, I see her walking now, away from me so hurriedly. My reasons must allow that I have loved not as I should, a creature made of clay. when the angel rose that clay his wings at the dawn of day.
Thank you, Joe Kearns. That was beautiful. And thank you for sharing your love of Ireland. We feel it very much. And we'll be looking for you. We'll be looking for you around the world and in Ireland.
Thanks for it. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much.
Same here. Thanks for listening to our award-winning podcast. We've recorded over 100 episodes of Places I Remember, so follow us on any podcast app. And new monthly episodes are also on YouTube with gorgeous video. My book, Places I Remember, is available in print and Kindle, and I read the audio version. Follow my travel writing at Forbes.com. Contact me at the links in the show notes or on my website, placesirememberlealane.com, and keep making your own travel memories.